Good morning, Louisiana country music fans. I'm Ronnie Calhoun, and we have got a special treat for you this morning. But before we bring our guest on this morning, I want to remind everyone to set your alarms for 7 o'clock every Tuesday night for Louisiana Country Music Live. This coming Tuesday night, we'll be talking to Mr. Tracy Broussard. We'll be talking about from growing up in Kankton, Louisiana to playing drums for Blake Shelton. There's a lot to cover in there. So we're looking forward to that one. Make sure to tune in. This morning, we're going to talk about an awesome show coming up next Thursday night, October 30th at Manship Theater in Baton Rouge. They'll be hosting Nashville hitmakers Tim Nichols, Lee Thomas Miller, and Wendell Mobley. These guys are unreal songwriters, and this is a huge get for Baton Rouge. We're excited to have an exclusive interview this morning with one of these talented songwriters. Let me frame it up for him because there's a lot going on with this guy. From Nicholasville, Kentucky to Music Row, our guest has 7 #1 country hits, 3 Grammy nominations, a Song of the Year wins at both CMA and ACM for In Color. He's also penned the ACM Single of the Year, You're Gonna Miss This, picked up ASCAP NSAI Song of the Year honors, and has earned 13 BMI awards. We're going to talk a little songwriting, brag on his buddies Tim Nichols and Wendell Mobley, and preview the big show. Let's welcome to the show Lee Thomas Miller.
Hey, guys.
How are you, brother?
Good. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, man. Thank you I hope I got all that right, man. I'd be embarrassed if I got that wrong. That's my
man.
Google.
Some of that was true.
I hope I didn't short you anything. That's what, even
no,
if we
sir.
can catch them. Yes, sir.
No, sir. Sounded good.
Well, thank you for coming on this morning, man, and spending a few minutes with us. I'm really excited about this show that's coming up. How are you this morning?
I'm good. I'm good. Hey, man, it's for songwriters, it's early. You know, we're about to get it going. I'm sitting here in my studio in Nashville, and you know, we're going to start rhyming words with truck. So
about that time.
Well, man, about that time.
you're a Kentucky guy, is that right?
Originally.
Okay.
You know, that was a long time ago. I've been here my whole adult life. I went to Eastern Kentucky University, got a degree in classical music, degree in music theory, composition. And somebody asked me one time, what does that mean? And I said, it means I'm overqualified to play this bar. Then I moved to Nashville, and I've been here 34 years. So,
well, man, you've done some great things there. So, you know, we're a Louisiana show, so I was looking up, and you got a couple little Louisiana ties. You spent some time down here at Rifle Point with my buddy Paul Ming over there.
That's right.
By the way, Paul and Susan, his wife, will be at the show Thursday night. And
well, I'm looking forward to seeing Susan. I don't care if Paul comes or not.
Unfortunately, she's bringing him with her. Paul's a great dude, man. You've also written some songs for several Louisiana artists that I found. Looks like Sammy Kershaw has cut some of your stuff, Andy Griggs, and then you've got a couple of big ones with Trace Adkins and Tim McGraw, a couple of #1s. You got Tim McGraw's Southern Girl, and Trace Adkins, You're Gonna Miss This, man. That was so I guess saying all that, we can say you're an honorary Louisiana boy.
Well, I would be honored to be an honorary Louisiana boy. Louisiana's been good to me. Of course, I was telling you earlier, for all that success, my daughter's at school at Tulane, so every penny I've ever made off Louisiana is going right back into the economy of Louisiana.
You're reinvested in the community.
I am. She told me, she showed me the, once she got in, she was so excited, and then she showed me the paperwork, and I said, well, let me ask you something. Which one of them buildings are they going to name after me? If this is the prize, do I get the library or do I get the science building? You know, just pick one.
They don't give away that Tulane education, do they?
Well, they do not.
I'm an LSU boy. They wouldn't have. Tulane would have sent me the rejection letter. And LSU wasn't cheap, but it was a lot cheaper than Tulane.
Well, I raised the least sports-minded kids on earth. Matter of fact, she's my big my overachiever, when she was looking at college, is one of her criteria was if a school is known for a sport, it's off the list.
LSU would not
Jealous you never had a chance. And then the first semester, Tulane had a pretty good football team last year, you know.
They
I said, what are you going to do now? And she says, I don't know. Let's just hold tight. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, they do have a good football team now, man. They're starting to become a little bit of a football school, so we'll see. Man, let's talk about your journey in the business. You know, it says that you were born in Nicholasville, Kentucky. So how does a kid from Nicholasville, Kentucky become such a successful songwriter in Nashville, Tennessee?
Well, nothing makes you look for something different to do with your life like a tobacco farm in Kentucky. You know, I was a kid, you know, looking around going, whew, this is a rough way to make a living. And I remember Daddy said sometime in the early 80s, he says, you know, this, you know, tobacco's going away. He says, this isn't going to be a living, you know, in your adulthood. Says you if you're thinking about doing this, you need to look for something else. And I said, oh, don't worry. I'm not thinking about doing this. You know, there's got to be quicker ways to die than this. Man, I always say baseball was my first love. That was plan A. You know, first time I ever dreamed about getting off the farm was I wanted to play baseball. And it turned out I wasn't very good. And it just was one of those things I couldn't overcome, you know? And then, I don't know, man, I was about, I started playing piano when I was 11. And then it just kind of, my mother called it a curse. I just kind of went crazy, man. I started getting instruments and begging for lessons. And by the time I was in high school, I knew I wanted to come to Nashville. I didn't know what I was going to do. You know, the group Alabama blew up, and that was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. I mean, I was obsessed. And I thought, I want to be in something like that, you know, some, you know,
so
band
you grew
that's signed in Nashville that tours and plays. Man, I had the mullet. I had the mullet of all. Morgan Wallen dreams all night long about having my mullet from 1995. You know, he will never do it. He can't do it. He didn't have the genes to pull it off. Yeah, man. So I moved to Nashville right after college, 1991. And, you know, I didn't know him. I mean, I was terrified, but I didn't know enough to be, you know, I should have been more terrified. It's the greatest musicians in the world. I knew that. And that's why I went to college for music. I'm going to give myself the best chance I can. I studied classical piano, classical violin, got a degree in music theory. I took, you know, I took classical guitar lessons. You know, I've learned to play steel guitar. Anything. I'm just go, right? And if I suck, if you don't like me doing this, let me do this. You don't like that, let me do this. You know, I studied classical voice, you know, all through, and you know, man, it was I was obsessed with it. And then I come to Nashville, and I'm sitting and looking at these guys, and I'm like, God, these guys are from another planet, man. I mean, I don't even know how they take their guitars out of the case, you know. And I learned pretty quick, you know, the number one thing is you got to be here. You know, you got to be here, and you got to get in it. You got to get in the culture, and the most important thing is you got to stay. And I would meet people who came, and oh man, this is too much. Or the famous, you know, well, this is just political. And it's like,
yeah,
well, dude, if you go back home and work at the co-op, it's going to be political. You know, all of this is about relationships. And Nashville was totally different then. All of that crazy tourist stuff downtown wasn't there. There weren't all those honky tonks. There wasn't all of that music. I remember people saying, where's the live music in Nashville? And I was like, nah, there really isn't. There was a handful of bars where the locals went, you know. So you had these guys that were waiting their turn to get gigs on the road, playing in these literally 4 or 5 kind of dive bars. And you'd walk into this bar and it'd be like the greatest band you've ever heard. Like and you know, they were kind of C drawer musicians waiting their turn in Nashville, you know, only because the A drawer was like, you know, Rain Man crazy good, right? And along with that was the kids who were trying to write or sing. And so I met Tim McGraw at open mic nights in 1991 at these little dive bars, and it's Tracy Lawrence and Jody Messina. And, we were all just kids, man. And then there's dozens of others that, man, they didn't make it a year. They're just like, oh, I can't do this. So now I fast forward 34 years, and hell, Tim McGraw's a star.
Yeah. Man, do you know Rick Huckabee?
Yeah, well.
Yeah. So Huck, we had Huck. He's a Louisiana guy originally. Yeah. We had him on here, and we asked him for the best advice that anybody had ever given. And he said that this advice had been passed down over the years. But he said somebody told him, if you can live without it, you probably should, about the music business. And he said, yeah. And if you can't, you're going to do it anyway. So
I heard a long time ago somebody said, if you can picture yourself doing anything else, just go ahead and do it. Do the other thing. Because if you have a plan B, this is going to be too hard. You'll do plan B. I promise you, plan B is not as hard as this is going to be. I still see people that say, hey, I'm going to give it a year. I'm going to give it 2 years. And I'm like, man, you need to save yourself a year. Just stay home. It just doesn't work like that.
If you're looking at it like that,
no. You got to absolutely, it's a exercise in how bad do you want it, because it's going to be a buzzsaw, But if you have I tell kids, writers, man, if you have any momentum whatsoever, if you have any win, like you get a publishing deal, or your publisher really loves that song you wrote today, that's a huge victory, because you have succeeded against the best in the world. Every increment is massive, and you use that as a reason to stay.
Yeah, it's great advice. Going back to baseball real quick, and we're going to get to the show in a minute, but I know our audience is enjoying hearing from you. So going back to baseball for a minute, we cover the Louisiana news for our artists every week. And recently, Tim McGraw, I don't know if you knew this or not, Tim McGraw got to play the first ever concert. They were calling it Corncert at the Field of Dreams baseball field. And it was on the same day that his dad, it was on the same day of his dad's birthday. So it would have been his dad's birthday. So, I thought that was a really
Well, I was also at, they played a game, the Reds and the Braves played at Bristol, in the middle of Bristol Motor Speedway. And Tim did a concert before the show.
Wow.
And I was there. We were there, watched me and Johnny Bench are really close. My absolute childhood hero walks up to me 4 years ago at one of these corporate shows and introduced himself. And we've talked almost every day for 4 years. We've traveled together and stay at each other's houses, and our wives are close. And I get baseball fantasy camp with Johnny Bench. I've done Cooperstown, and
dude, that's
man, walk the streets of Cincinnati with Johnny Bench. It's like walking Memphis with Elvis. It's like, so
that's amazing.
I'm a big baseball guy.
Yeah, that's amazing, dude. Johnny Bench, that's a pretty random connection later in life.
Well, I told him the other day, I said, we do a lot of these shows like we're coming down to do for you, right? My joke's always country music is so popular now they let the songwriters do shows. And we go everywhere. I mean, we go everywhere, man. And and I'll Instagram a lot of stuff about JB because I spend a lot of time with him, and I'm still so starstruck, right? And I told him the other day, I said, man, you're pretty good for ticket sales. It's like, I have people now showing up at songwriter shows just in case you're there.
All he's got to do is go to one, then you can post.
Well, he was on Hee Haw a couple times, right? Like at the height of his career, he was singing. And he knew all the Grand Ole Opry stars, and he would duck hunt with Tennessee Ernie Ford and Grandpa Jones and Roger Miller. Like, he knew him and Mac Davis were buddies, and he really was kind of sniffing around. Man, when this baseball thing's over, man, I might go sing, right? So he came down last year for a card show, and he stayed with us for a few days, and we took him to the Bluebird Cafe, and I surprised him and got him up to sing. Dude, the Bluebird Cafe is known for guests, and I've seen a lot of people surprise people at the Bluebird Cafe. I've never seen the reaction at the Bluebird that Johnny Bench got. People lost their minds.
Can he sing?
Yeah.
Wow.
This is the thing. Johnny Bench is a star. Okay. If you go back and look at him on David Letterman or Johnny Carson, and of course his calling card is he's Johnny Bench. And his hands are like freakish big. And he could hold in his day, he could hold 7 baseballs like this, right?
Wow.
It's the craziest thing. And he would do it live on like Johnny Carson. But then he's very personal and he's really funny. Like he has a whole stand-up routine that he does. They call him the mayor of the Hall of Fame because there's nobody better to MC, or he's so outgoing. And I've seen panels of big league players, right? And it'll be crazy people sitting up there, and it'll be superstars, but they're not really good at that. And it's like the interviewer will start kind of panicking because it's going downhill, and JB just takes over. He's just really like this interview. He would have already taken this over, and you would be like, "Oh my God, this is unbelievable! This is fantastic!" Yeah. So it's like, yeah, he sings. He thinks he can sing. He sings fine, but he's fearless and he knows the words to everything. So Johnny Bench is a star.
That's amazing, man. I wasn't expecting a good Johnny Bench story this morning. That's awesome.
It was the greatest gift of other than my wife, it's the greatest gift of my adult life. I mean, and a lot of people ask me about it. And I'm like, yeah, if you were here, we'd FaceTime.
That's awesome, man. That's great, dude. Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you, country radio changes every few years, as you know. What's one thing about great songs that never changes, and what's something that you kind of have to adapt to as it changes?
Well, part of the reason that people can't do this from back home, is the changes are sometimes kind of nuanced. Like the sound of country music, sometimes it changes drastically. Bro country came in and it's kind of changed overnight. Cruise hits the radio and boom, we have bro country, right? And then sometimes it's just a little more subtle than that. I hope the one thing that never changes about Nashville and country music is at the end of the day, it's a story, more so than pop will ever be. There's always the fear that we are getting so pop centric that we're losing some of that. I hope we don't. I hope that whoever comes up with a version of Buy Dirt, that's always a hit because it's a great story. I guess that was our second part of the question.
Well, I was just saying, like, so a story, I guess, is the part that never changes.
I think
a great song, and then I was just kind of like, what's something that you've had to adapt to as it does change? Do you write differently, or do you just kind of write what Lee writes, or do you kind of adapt with? I mean, do you consciously adapt with it? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yes and no. I think that not everybody's like this. Some full-time writers will tell you they don't listen to the radio. I've always found that odd. I don't know how you do this without knowing what's on the radio. I've always been pretty good about knowing the radio because that's the target. You go through periods where there's things you like better than others. You have huge. The listener likes some artists better than other artists. Well, it's the same for us. We like some music better than other music. We're a lot more critical because we know too much. It's like we literally watch the sausage be made. It's like we know all these kids 2 years before you've ever heard of them. Yes, I mean you have to adapt. I mean I got my first big cut in what 1995 maybe. Well, if I was sitting here today saying I'm only going to write songs in the style of 1995, I wouldn't be doing this anymore. So it's you're going to have to consciously be aware that the sound changes. And look, commercial music is has always been made for young people to a degree. I think it's why rock and roll and pop, it's why, teenagers in the 60s, their parents hated the Beatles because that wasn't their music. That music was written for young people, right? Well, that never changes. Probably there's not a lot of 55-year-olds listening to Sabrina Carpenter. It's made for young people, right? And so country music comes along, and some of Morgan Wallen's stuff is grown-up themes, and some of it's beer in a freaking back seat of a car. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to look for themes that are universal, but you're also going to have to roll with it and understand that you're trying to write something that the kids are going to listen to after the game on Friday night.
Yeah, that's great, man. One of the things that we're trying to do here with Louisiana country music is find guys like you to give these bits of nuggets of wisdom out for our up and coming artists who are in Louisiana, who are thinking about making that move. We've got so many of them who have made that move, and we always just ask, like, what are those things? So thank you for sharing some of that with us. We've got some up, and I see Kendall Schaefer on here right now. He's watching. He said songwriting legend right there. So the up and comers are always learning, guys like you, man.
It sounds like that fella's drinking too early on a Friday.
Well, he's down in Baton Rouge, so it's possible.
100%.
Man, since we're a Louisiana audience, I know that our audience would love to hear a little bit about "You're Gonna Miss This" and how that song came to be. You mind sharing a little bit of that with us?
Man, that song is a good example of a lot of things. I've always believed that, for me, the song starts with the title, or at least the idea. A lot of people will argue that that's not necessarily true. There's a great story. Dean Dillon wrote "The Chair," and the argument is he was writing with his co-writer, and they were arguing that a song could not be written unless you had a great idea. And supposedly Dean said, that's not true. He's, no, it's true. It's true. You can't write a song. You can't write a great song. I guess it was Hank Cochran. You can't write a great song unless you have a great idea. And Dean said, that's not true. We could write a song about that chair right there if we wrote it well enough. So that blows this entire story out of the water. But I've always felt like I got to know where we're going to land the plane, right? And some people, say, well, you start at the beginning of the song and the title shows itself. Then I don't know. I'm probably lost. Well, that day, my kids were little. I was writing with a guy named Ashley Gorley, who's now become, the most decorated songwriter in the history of country music. Well, back then he was pretty new. He had one hit at the time, and it was just one of those mornings we were both kind of frazzled, and literally, best I can remember, he had come from the house and he was late, and there was some handyman there trying to fix something, and his kids were literally rifling through his tools, and that part had kind of happened where the guy said, man, it's fine. They're fine. I have kids. That was the gist of it. Now, I don't remember how we got to "You're Gonna Miss This." But that was where the story started. We wrote it. I feel like we wrote most of it that day. We might have come back a second day and tweaked it. Ashley demoed it, and Lee Brice sang the demo. Because Lee, I don't know if he had his record deal yet. He might have, but nothing was really going on. And so I just remember Lee would sing for you, but it was expensive. Like if the other guys charged you $75 to sing your demo, Lee Brice charged you about $250. But it was really good. Now the funny thing is, when we demoed it, it sounds like a Rascal Flatts song. It's high. It's very big.
The opposite of Trace Adkins.
He's one of the best singers in the business, and so yeah. So we made it sound like we were thinking about Rascal Flatts or somebody like that, And Trace's producer at the time, I wrote for his company, and he played it for Trace, and Trace was humored by it. And the producer kind of leaned in. So on the same session, Trace Adkins cut "You're Gonna Miss This" and "In Color." So That afternoon, the steel guitar player from the session called me, because it's Nashville. Everybody knows everybody. And he's freaking out about "In Color." He says, man, we cut In Color today, and he's just going on and on and on, right? I'm like, oh, it's amazing, right? Well, Jamey had already lost his record deal. Jamey wasn't going to make records anymore, so my people had pitched it. So weeks go by, and nobody ever mentions You're Gonna Miss This. All they're talking about is In Color, In Color, In Color. And Ashley asked me one day, he says, "Well, hey, what's Frank saying about You're Gonna Miss This?" And I said, he hasn't mentioned it. I don't know. I come into work one day and they said, "We got a problem." I said, "What?" And they said, Jamey Johnson songs for Universal Records last night, and they offered him a record deal. And once promotion heard him, they said the only thing they thought radio would play was In Color, and they're shipping it to radio. And I said, no. They said this is going to be the title track of the next Trace Adkins album. They said it's going to be a career record, and he'd cut this big, expensive sounding record on it, sang the crap out of it. Somebody's going to have to tell Trace. I said, it ain't going to be me. And
I'm definitely not telling him in person.
No. So, James Otto's on it too. So I called Otto on a Sunday, and I'm freaking out because my problem was Jamey had made a lot of enemies. And I was like, I feel like we have something here. And Jamey's got baggage. And so we had this big conversation, me and James Otto, about, do we ask Jamey not to do it? We talked ourselves out of that idea pretty fast. And we're like, we're just going to have to go with it. And Jamey wouldn't answer the phone. We're calling, he wouldn't answer, And so Jamey went and told Trace. We find out Trace hates You're Gonna Miss This. All right. And he was getting ready to go do the Celebrity Apprentice. And they had 4 songs finished. And the producer had pushed through and finished You're Gonna Miss This. You're Gonna Miss This, In Color, I Got My Game On, and I forget what the 4th one was. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, one of these is going to be the single. And I said, yeah. And the least obvious one was I Got My Game On. And I was 100% sure that was going to be the single, because this is the way the music business works. Sure enough, In Color went away because he couldn't have it. He hated You're Gonna Miss This, and they went to radio with Got My Game On. Trace goes off to shoot the Celebrity Apprentice, which was NDA. It was going to be 10 weeks of filming. Nobody could know what was happening. Game On goes to radio. The producers thought Trace was a dumb redneck. They were going to have fun with him and just kick him off after a few weeks. And then he would come back. Game On dies at 66. And he starts winning the show unbeknownst to anybody. And all of a sudden, the producers change the focus of like, oh, God, this guy's smarter than the other people. This is actually really good. So now Trace is winning. Game On's dead. He's up there for months. And kind of against Trace's wishes, they send You're Gonna Miss This to the radio as a single. But they tell me it's going to be a time filler. Nobody thought it would work. And I always say nothing says put 4 kids through college like a time filler, right? So we've lost In Color. Miss This is nothing because nobody cares. This is a disaster, right? Trace goes all the way to the end of the deal, right? And wins all the way to the grand finale. Well, the grand finale was going to be live. So then fast forward a few months, You're Gonna Miss This never hit a road bump. It's the fastest climbing song I ever had, straight to #1. And the live finale of Celebrity Apprentice, Trace Adkins and Pierce Morgan on NBC primetime television Thursday night. That morning, that Thursday when Trace woke up, we were #1. And that night, on live television at the grand finale, Donald Trump said, "Here to perform the #1 song in the country is Trace Adkins."
That's unbelievable, man. I mean,
and Trace says, as he walks by Donald Trump to sing, Donald Trump goes, "Thank you, Mr. Trump." Like he took credit for the whole thing. Thank you, Mr. Trump.
That's hilarious.
Trace had gone as far as to say nobody's going to care about this song. He didn't get it. He didn't want to do it. And I was furious over In Color, and then we won Song of the Year at the ACMs for In Color. And then at the Grammys, You're Gonna Miss This and In Color were up for Grammy for Song of the Year. And we both lost. We both lost to Sugarland. And then we get to the CMA Awards, and the night of the CMA Awards, You're Gonna Miss This against In Color for CMA Song of the Year. In Color wins Song of the Year at the CMAs. You're Gonna Miss This wins Single of the Year. And I look back at my my publisher who was sitting a row behind me, and I said, "Hey, I'm feeling better about the decision to let Jamey have In Color."
I was about to say, dude. I mean, it's like two stories in one. But I mean, that's amazing because of the journey of both songs. There were points along both songs that you were thinking neither song was going to make it, and
both of them almost were nothing, man.
And they both come back and like hit. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. Man. Usually the stories don't end that well, but no, that was pretty fun. And matter of fact, the first time I saw Trace and all of this was at the #1 party for You're Gonna Miss This, and we're standing there doing press and pictures. And of course, he's 9 feet tall and a hat, and while they're taking pictures, I said under my breath, "Sorry," but while we're smiling at the cameras, I said, "Sorry about In Color." And there's a picture of him going. And they caught it. It's this great picture. And he leans down and says, "If Jamey hadn't been a writer on it, we'd have had a problem." I know.
Oh man! So that version, and then we'll move on towards the show. But that version of Trace Adkins, I mean, what is it different? Is it similar?
Well,
I'm trying to imagine Trace doing In Color.
It's out there. He did an album called X 10. I assume that meant it was his 10th album. I don't know, but the album's called X. And In Color came out on the deluxe edition. Man, so I think it was a deal. This was all pre-streaming, kind of. I think you had to buy the deluxe edition to get In Color. It was the first. I had a lot of emotion tied up in it, and Frank Rogers makes such great records. It was an exquisite record. It really, really, really was a great record. Almost everyone that loves In Color hears that, and they're like, "Oh, that doesn't have the magic. That doesn't have the whatever." Well, the funny thing about the record, as you know it, is Jamey cut it as a demo, and he was sick, and just sang anyway, So he's very, he sang it very simply because he was sick, and like his piano player played acoustic, it's like low budget, they just kind of, did it. Mixed it like it sounded like it's so when you mix stuff to get it to where you hear it, it's been mastered and it's been gained up and all that kind of stuff. The mix is so small and quiet that in iTunes on the computer it won't even play through the speakers because it's so, and literally that's the mix. He didn't re-sing it, they didn't fix anything, they sent it to mastering, made it louder, and sent it out. So it's warts and all. That's the record, and he absolutely did not touch it. 2 weeks ago, he sang with full Nashville Symphony Friday and Saturday night. And kind of last minute, I said, "We got to go hear this, right?" So we went down and saw Jamey with the Nashville Symphony, and it just killed. Sold 2 nights, sold out with the symphony, and In Color just destroyed everybody. So
it's interesting to me that. I'm sorry. I'm sitting here thinking that it's interesting that in hindsight, you take both of those songs, In Color and You're Gonna Miss This. how could anybody in the world hear either one of those songs and not immediately think, man, that's a smash hit? You know what I mean?
Buddy, we'll have a hit, and interviews, press will say, "Did you know this was undeniable when you wrote it?" And I just laugh. I always say, "I assure you, it's all deniable." You know, you're gonna miss this in particular. Billboard said that. Did you know it was undeniable? And I said, of course, the reporter's sitting there kind of weepy, you know, going on and on about the meaning of "you're going to miss this." And I said, the day we wrote it, I knew we wrote it correctly. And that was the most generic answer. He just said, "What does that mean? This beautiful emotional masterpiece. What do you mean you wrote it clean?" And I said, "Well, Trace didn't want to be, he doesn't like the perception. He don't want to be the guy singing about kids growing up or having an adult kid. He wants to ride around in the truck with the hot young thing with her barefoot feet on the dashboard." Most of them, certainly by the time they reach a certain age, they're not going to sing themes that make them older. They don't want to be perceived as older. Mm-hmm. So "You're Going to Miss This" was a hard pitch. There were very few people that were going to say it. For one thing, a 20-something really couldn't say it. They're not old enough to sell it. You know, I mean, the girl grows up, the kid in the story grows up and has kids, right? So if you're singing from the standpoint of kind of her father, McGraw's not going to say that. He's never going to be the guy, I mean, his kids are grown, but he's never going to sing a song about it, So no, it was quite deniable. And then even Trace was like, he hated it. And he's standing on the stage at CMA Awards holding his CMA award for Single of the Year. And he said, he thanked me, he thanked Ashley, and he goes, "I don't know anything about the music business. I said nobody would care. But here we are." So that ended up being that single ended up being off of his greatest hits. And I've got a big plaque in here in my office that he signed for me at the #1 party, and it said, "Well, there you go. Imagine an artist's greatest hit coming off of the greatest hits."
I've never thought about it like that though. Whenever you're pitching to somebody, that is very relevant, like their age and their image and all of that. So even though it's a great song, this is the first time thinking about it from that perspective. That's interesting.
Well, we have ideas all the time. Music where the themes were, they were more fearless. I mean, country music kind of, it springs off bluegrass music. Well, bluegrass music and early country music had this terrible theme about killing the wife and throwing her in the river. I mean, it used to be dark, So certainly there's songs about, being poor with, 5 kids and a baby on the way and sitting on the chair in a rocking chair with gray hair. And, there's a lot of stories about adult growing up and going through hard things. And, they just won't do that. They can't see themselves standing in a football stadium singing to 70,000 people something about getting old, or raising adult kids, right? Or the word kids. If you notice, and you'll notice this now, I want you to listen to the radio and you tell me how long it takes before somebody says the word wife. You're not going to hear it.
Wow.
Cole Swindell's not saying the word
wife. I'm trying to think off my head. I'm like, I can't, I'm blank. Yeah.
No. Wow. No, not in the context of, Saturday night, me and my wife sitting on the front porch, drinking iced tea, waiting on the grandkids. No, you're not. That's not the way it works. So in color, you're going to miss this. If all of that, if he hadn't had the Celebrity Apprentice, it wouldn't have happened. If he had gotten kicked off the Celebrity Apprentice within the first 2 weeks, it wouldn't have happened. Because he'd have been back here and he'd have had time to cut something else.
It's funny how the Lord works, isn't it?
The Lord has a terrible sense of humor.
I can agree with that sometimes. Those are amazing stories, man. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Let's brag on your buddies a little bit, man, that you're going to be playing with on Thursday night. We'll start with Tim Nichols. For our audience that may not know, he's written huge hits like "Live Like You Were Dying" for Tim McGraw, and "This Ain't No Thinking Thing." "This Ain't No Thinking Thing" for Trace Adkins, if I'm not mistaken, along with dozens of other hits. But a couple.
I Lie, Zach Top.
Yeah, just a bunch of big hits. So, what is it about Tim that makes him such a great songwriter?
Man, Tim's a little bit older than me, so he was established by the time I came. You almost have to ask somebody else that question, because I'm biased, because he's in my top 3 human beings in the world. He just, I don't know, man. You go through life, and if you're lucky, you have a lot of friends, but when it comes right down to, the people that those 3 a.m. phone calls, the people that you've done hard life with, the people you really, really love. Tim's one of my people. So he's smarter than most of the guys. Writers are psychopaths as a rule. Okay, let's just Now, my wife loves to say that, she says, I think it's cute that you can see the crazy in the others, but you really think you're normal. But that's maybe she has an issue. Okay. But I'll say that, writers tend to be dark, and they tend to be, gloom and doom. And, we do a lot of energy bitching about the cut we didn't get and stuff. He doesn't do that. He's the most glass 3/4 full person you'll ever meet in your life. He's great energy to be around. Oh, man. And then he has some really refreshing, because he is successful, and yet he's been doing it a long time, and he knows all the people and's done all the things, and he should be an arrogant jerk, and he's just the sweetest person in the world. And people see him in a show, and he's funny, and he's just very approachable. And you're going to look at him and you're going to go, this guy seems like somebody I could have a beer with. And I assure you, there is no one more fun in the world. If you don't have a beer with anybody else, have one with Tim Nichols.
I'm going to have one when he's singing on Thursday night. I know that for sure.
And you should. But no, I am his biggest fan. We were there when he went into the Hall of Fame a few years ago, and he's beloved. He's one of those people on Music Row that is just loved. And traveling with him is just a hoot, because he's just easy. It's just, he's the most just roll with the flow. Whatever you want to do, it's all good. It's all going to be fine. I've never seen Tim Nichols have a crisis, and the rest of us are constantly in some form of crisis. Oh God, the world's ending, and Tim's like, oh brother, no brother, it's all going to be good.
That's funny, man. So Wendell Mobley, let's brag on Wendell a little bit. Another amazing writer, and man, what an incredible singer also. For our audience, we're talking hits like "There Goes My Life," "Fast Cars and Freedom." These guys, Lee and these guys, are big hits. So if you hadn't picked up on that, what makes Wendell so good at this songwriting thing?
Boy, Wendell, here's the question you're going to ask about Wendell is, how is this guy not famous? Right. I always say Wendell is one of the top 4 or 5 singers in Nashville, even today. I mean, and the Carrie Underwoods of the world would tell you that. Man, he's a world-class musician. Again, came to town kind of like me, just trying to figure out what he wanted to do. Just an insane guitar player and singer. And there was a moment there where I think that they were beginning to talk record deal, but I mean, he will laugh and say, I like to sleep in my own bed. and maybe it is that simple. You know, I just don't think he wanted to do that. Being an artist is 3% music and 97% something else, and he didn't want to do the other stuff. You know, he just wanted to make music. So he toured with you know, some Grand Ole Opry stars playing in their band. He toured with Alabama. You know, he stood behind the curtain and played guitar and sang harmony, you know, with Alabama for a while. And then they started having hits.
Wow.
Yeah, he's
Like off the
loved.
stage, he played and sang, like not on the
Well, it's just funny. I don't remember, but you know, always, maybe not at the very beginning, but certainly after they got rolling, you're standing there looking at four guys, and maybe you weren't noticing you were hearing more music. So somewhere up there were other people, and it was always, you know, session musicians. You know, today it's just like the guy, there's a piano player out with him doing this current tour, and he's like one of the top 3 session piano players in Nashville, you know, and he's up there somewhere making it sound really, really, really good. Yeah. So yeah, Wendell did that for a while, and then he took off having a run. Him and Neil kind of did a lot of that together. There was this era where you couldn't get in with Neil and Wendell. There was Neil and Wendell, and those selfish assholes had it locked down. Nobody could get in on it, you know. And man, they defined country music for a while. You know, there would be no Rascal Flatts or early Jason Aldean, you know, without those guys. I mean, or Kenny Chesney, man. Neil and Wendell are two of the best 5 singers in town. And Wendell, again, he's an example of why Nashville is so great. You know, I'll be out with those guys somewhere, you know, Wendell's singing, and Wendell's just, you know, people are crying, and they're hearing him sing his version of these things that, you know, the freaking Carrie Underwood sang. It wasn't like it was a you know, an amateur singing the original, but then you hear Wendell sing it, you know, or Kenny will have Wendell come up and sing. And that, you know, and Wendell will just completely destroy the room, and I'll say, well, in a room this size, there's probably a fair amount of people who are dreaming about going to Nashville to be a country music star. Well, this is the point in the show where I'd like to remind you that Wendell Mobley does not make his money singing, but I'm sure you're great. How hard could it possibly be? You know, and I kid you not, you see people almost throw up in their beer, like, oh God, this is going to be impossible. What's happening? Why is that guy not famous? You know. So yeah, I mean, I spend more time with him than I do anybody. We do a lot together, and so I had this incredible front row seat to the Wendell Mobley show, and he never ever disappoints. It's just him sick is better than everyone else at 100%. So.
I've never heard Wendell sing live. Obviously, I'm like one of those nerds that goes to YouTube and listens to the songwriter versions and stuff. I've been very fortunate with Paul that we mentioned earlier, has brought me out to Rifle Point many times, and I've been fortunate enough to sit with Neil around the fireplace and just him playing "There Goes My Life" on the guitar and telling these stories. And it doesn't get any better than that, man. And you're right; those guys are freaking amazing, dude. They're killer.
Yeah, they're special. I'm very blessed to spend time in their orbit, man. I mean, it makes us all better. You know, Ricky Skaggs, when I was a kid, learning to play fiddle and stuff, I remember I would find these interviews with Ricky Skaggs, and he said he always makes sure he's the worst musician in the room. Always be the worst in the room. That's how you get better, you know. And whenever I'm around Wendell or Neil, I'm like, well, I'm the worst in this room, because that right there is a master class in how to do this.
Well, I know you're being a little humble there, but yeah, all of you guys are amazing, man. And that's why this show coming up in Baton Rouge, this is why, you know, that I wanted to do this interview for Manship, because I want people in Louisiana, in this area, to understand what you guys are bringing to the table to this show. You know, everybody listens to the radio, but like I said, I'm one of those nerds that's always under the hood, like, who wrote this? And all of that. So this is a huge get for Baton Rouge. This is a huge get for Manship, and there shouldn't be an empty seat in the house, and I don't think there will be.
Well, man, I have a confession. I've never been to Baton Rouge.
You haven't?
Yeah. So what should I expect?
Well, it depends. It depends on where you go and when you go.
I guess I'm going to be with you. So
yeah, that's right.
What's going to happen?
We'll have a good time for sure. I can tell you that. And if you want to see LSU, we can see LSU. If you get LSU around a game day, it's no telling what you'll see. I mean, Death Valley on TV, but on a Thursday, you're going to get some good food. We can guarantee that. Meet some interesting people. The South Louisiana people are some of the best people in the world. The Cajun people, it's just super sweet, family oriented, faith based, and community based. It'll be a good time. Some of the people that will be at the show will be some of the best people on earth, man, that you'll be singing for. And like I said, we'll get you some good food on Thursday. We'll make sure you will not go home hungry.
Well, I love it. I'm looking forward to it. I hope everybody comes out. It's going to be, I promise you this, it won't be boring. We have a lot of fun.
Well, that was going to be, I was going to ask you that question. What can our audience expect for those who have never been to this type of show, maybe a songwriter round that don't know? What can our audience expect from you guys on Thursday?
This is a very Nashville experience. We've been doing this here. The Bluebird opened almost 50 years ago. And if you haven't been to the Bluebird, it's just this little cafe, truly. It holds 80 people.
Strip mall, yeah.
Yeah, in a strip mall. And they just kind of, it seems so obvious now, but the owner just, business wasn't good. And she had a boyfriend who played music. And so he talked her into just letting them him and his buddies just kind of do a songwriter thing where we talked about writing songs. And it was a hit, like right out of the gate. It worked and people found it interesting. And it kind of became its own icon, and then, the TV show Nashville came along and it featured the Bluebird. It ran for 6 seasons and the Bluebird was featured in every single episode, right? And then Nashville built this big convention center. And we always had some conventions, but not a lot. And after the city leaned into that, we started being a destination for corporate stuff. And the most obvious way to entertain them was Bluebird sessions, or songwriter rounds. And we've all been accustomed to doing it, since we came to town. It was golly, man, it was a feather in your cap to get to the point where you could play the Bluebird Cafe. That was a big thing, So we started just really leaning in and making it its own thing. Here's stuff we wrote for other people. And this is the story behind the song. I will give you something about the song that you don't know. And it's just absolutely become an entity, and we do it a lot. We get a lot of work. There's this incredible agent called Songwriter City that kind of goes around and makes it available. A lot of people come seeking it, and they come to him and say, "Hey, this is what we want," and we fly in, and it's a unique thing. We always say, "Is this a theater? Is the place we're playing a theater?"
Yeah, it's a theater. It's about a 325. It's a small 300 plus.
Theaters help because by nature the design of them tells you it's a listening experience, right? We're bad bar music. If you've hired us to come just play while you drink and talk and watch a ball game, it's not going to work. But it's a show, really. It's a songwriter round, but it's a show. Everything is. Every song's going to have a story. The writers always have some sort of relationship. So we do this a lot together. But then the crowd will dictate a lot of the show. Like there's going to be something. We're going to make fun of Lana Del Rey marrying an airboat guy. And, we're going to find something to tease the locals about, right? And then, we're going to I always say that, A lot of times people want the Nashville songwriters to come in and they expect us to be raging alcoholics. And sometimes we give them what they want. I mean, you don't want to disappoint the people. We're there to entertain, right? But we tell a whole lot about behind the curtains in Nashville, and hopefully we give you something. If you love country music, I think you absolutely love it. If you don't even like country music, you may like it even more. We hear that a lot. Just people say, I don't really like country music. I didn't know any of those songs, but I love this show. So it's not just for the diehards. It's its own thing.
Yeah, songwriter rounds are the absolute best part of country music. I mean, I tell people when they say, what should I do in Nashville? I'm like, if you don't do anything else, find some writer rounds, sit down, have a beer, and just be quiet. Don't talk for a couple of hours. And just listen to these guys. It's the best experience that you can have in Nashville or anywhere else to me, as far as the music business goes.
I totally agree. Constantly I have people say, I like this so much better than a concert. A concert is what it is, right? There's a place for it. It's polished, and if you're a big fan and it's its own thing, but this is so much more intimate, and we'll do these things for 5 people around a campfire, or we'll do it for 1,000 people at a breakfast banquet, and you customize it to whatever it is. And we did a guy's 50th birthday party in Sacramento in his backyard, not too long ago. And it works for every room you can possibly imagine. It's some version of sitting in the living room, telling you a story and singing you a song. So
I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great night. Anything else any other advice while I have you here before we get off of here? Like I said, we are Louisiana country music, and we promote Louisiana venues and Louisiana artists. We have a lot of, obviously we've got Jordan and Laney out there killing it. We've got some others like Kylie Fry, James Dupre. There's some others. He's out on the road with Randy Travis singing his stuff. Kylie's killing like 10 #1 Texas country. Like they're right there on that verge of popping. Any advice that, other than, you've already given us some killer advice, but any other advice that you would want to give some up and comers?
Man,
do you hate that question?
No, but the answer is usually not what people want to hear. I'm an ambassador for Nashville. I can't scream enough about how much I love Nashville. But we do see a lot of people around the country that really, really want to do this, but they don't want to come to Nashville, and they want to know what the secret is to do it from back home. And Tim Nichols says it better than anybody says it. When they ask him this question, he says, if you're going to hunt tigers, you got to go where the tigers are. That says it all. So, I mean, it starts with, you're going to have to be in Nashville. If you want to do country music, you're going to have to be in Nashville. There's no pass. And people will say, well, I live in Topeka, and I've got a baby, and my wife's pregnant again, and so that's not an option. And I'm like, yeah, well, here's the thing. There's no hall pass for the people in Topeka that have kids. Do you want to do it or not? I don't know how you're going to do it. I understand that it's a hardship. I understand that maybe it's impossible. But if you're asking me what the first step is, you're going to have to be in Nashville. And then once you get in Nashville, you just have to be in the culture and start meeting your own people. It's a relationship business, but you kind of have to find your own relationships. No two paths are the same. Lainey Wilson's path was not Trace Adkins' path. And I think we all try to follow somebody else's deal, and you're going to end up, if you're going to do it, you're going to find your own people. And it comes down to how bad do you want it. It's not easy. Do you know how many are trying to do this? And then even us, we write a lot of songs. Like when we do these shows, you're hearing the greatest hits of our careers, but we've written 5 songs a week for 30 years. Do the math. It's a lot of songs. They say no. It's a no business. I always say, as far as the gatekeepers that listen to songs and say yes or no, if you say no, nobody gets fired. But if you say yes and it doesn't work, you may just lost your job. So the default is no. You know?
That's a great point.
We are terrible. Our batting averagers, the best songwriter, the most successful songwriter in Nashville, his batting average is horrific, you know, as far as hits to strikeouts.
Yeah.
You know, so. But, man, you're driving down the road and you hear it on the radio for the first time. Shit. There is no drug in the world like that. So it keeps you going.
Yeah. Well, man, we appreciate you coming on this morning, and you guys, thank you all, man, for the comments and everything. Everybody seems to be having a good time this morning and enjoying listening to you. And it looks like quite a few are going to get tickets. So if you watch this, if you watch this after the live, you may have already been too late to get tickets. But manshiptheater.org is where you get them, and we're looking forward to a packed house. Lee, if you'll hang on for a minute after we get off, we'll catch up after for just a second. But
well, my wife will be there. We're going to tell you tons of stories about her, so you're going to want to find her after it's over and ask her if all them stories are true. And you need to get us quick because we're going to leave Baton Rouge and go to New Orleans. So if you want to talk to us, you need to catch us before we get wild.
That's right. That's right. Well, hang on here for a minute whenever we get off, and we'll catch up about Thursday. And then, but guys, I want to say thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Lee, for jumping on with us. Thanks to everybody out there. We're looking forward to a packed house Thursday night. God bless everybody out there. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next Thursday night at Manship Theater in Baton Rouge. Thank y'all.
See you then.